Prachi, good afternoon, and thank you so much, for jumping onto I'm Possible and Smart, and joining me for this podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Monisha.
So, Prachi, we were having a small discussion, offline, and I was telling you my story, and I told you that this podcast is not going to be about me at all because. When we said let's call the series Heroes of Inclusion, it actually meant that we wanted to bring out, I think, the character of a person who actually is doing amazing work out there, creating social impact. And somewhere I believe that there are many heroes out there, no matter how less acknowledged one might feel at one at a given point of time, but there are many good souls out there doing amazing work. So, Prachi, to begin with your journey, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and how did life pivot for Prachi Deo?
Well, I'm an engineer by training. I was trained as an engineer, worked in the technology space, and was doing my IT work. But that's one part of my identity. I'm also a sibling. So my elder brother is a person with Down syndrome, and I have grown up with him, seeing various challenges he has faced. Various exclusions we have experienced, challenges my parents have faced. And growing up as a child, I always felt that there's something I would want to do in the space. I guess at that time, I didn't understand enough about inclusions. At that point, I thought I'll build the best special school in India and stuff like that. Uh, but as I grew up and I had my own child, my brother was probably 37, 38 then. Yes, then she started growing, and I was caring for her, the way one would care for babies. And of course, I was all very sensitive to my brother and whatever my parents were doing, and we as a family used to do. But when I was caring for my brother, I realized one of those moments that it just gets easier from here. My daughter starts growing, she grows more and more independent as each day passes by. She starts eating her own food, blah, 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 and so on. And it just gets easier. She will be independent to her. And parents like my parents and many others have been caring for their children throughout their lives, years and years and decades of their life. And they will only get older. The person they're caring for it becomes an adult, and it gets all the way harder. That's when I realized that maybe that was a trigger point then. That was when the seed was sown, sort of. And um, then many years later, when I was again volunteering, I came back. I think this happened when I was in the US, and my daughter was born in 2006. So back then. And then when I came back to India, I started volunteering at the various places my dada used to go to. And then I saw a mother come in there from 35 kilometers away, get therapy for her daughter. And she used to come in an auto with the little resources she had. She used to sit outside the school, and the doors were closed. She didn't know what was happening inside. She didn't know what she would do. She would bring her own lunch, her daughter's lunch. She would have a dabba outside. By the time therapies were done, etc., she'd take her daughter home. She probably did not know there might be another therapy center, another school very close to where she was. And she, as a primary caregiver, needed to know what was happening inside the closed doors so that she herself could work with her child. And that made me realize that the situation hasn't changed much than it was for my brother 40 years back. And I felt there's something that needs to be done. And we live in this world of the information technology, so to say, where we are going for movies based on reviews. We go for dinners and lunches based on reviews. And here are parents sending their children, many times non-verbal, not knowing how the place is, not knowing where they are sending. And that made me feel that why can't we do something recognizing families as the primary change agents in the lives of their children? And while all the interventions I felt, and of course there's a dearth of them, no two ways about it, there is nothing happening for families as primary caregivers. There are no interventions based for them, and end of the day, anyone forget families like us who have who have faced certain adversity, but any family, the success story is always about, there was this grandfather, there was my mother who did everything for me, there was my father who did everything for me, and it is 100 times more pronounced when it comes to additional needs. So yeah, that's how the journey started.
So you wanted to create what sounds like a resource base, right? So that, or a database, for families who were, who had individuals or children affected with any kind of disability, be it intellectual or developmental. Now, this, how easy or difficult was it, Prachi, to even get started in the space? Because I'm just coming from my own space, where even looking for a simple therapist in a wild city like Bombay is difficult, right? Because again, there are so many kinds of them and so many specializations for therapists, and I'm talking about just a physical therapist or a physiotherapist.
Yeah, the idea was, of course, creating a database was sort of one of the tangible outcomes, so to say, for it, or output for it. But the idea was to create a support system for the family. So it's not just about database. Over uh, years, what I have learned is there's so many things that a parent needs: motivation, information, support, inspiration to do that, because they do it day in, day out. Of course, we'll talk about it later, but coming specific to your question, it wasn't easy. It was literally hard work, brick by brick. I remember back in 2014, I started going to organizations. I had friends and volunteers come with me. We visited organizations which were 30 kilometers away, 35 kilometers away within Hyderabad, and try and understand what is it that they were doing. Those who were genuinely interested quickly realized the value of this, because they were saying that yes, we have parents and this will be such a good resource because it is not there. It will be very helpful. I didn't have to explain much. And there were organizations which closed door on us that why are you here? Are you here for inspection? We have a school. And a school cannot be pinned. There cannot be pin drop silence in any school. End of the day, you're dealing with children, disability or not. There has to be that, there will be that noise and all of that. So that was the case. And the beauty was, after I started, went to a conference or two, there were people who started coming and joining me. For example, I had gone to this Down syndrome conference in Delhi,
Mm-hmm.
much at the insistence of, I don't know if you probably have had a conversation with her, Rekha Ramchandran. And once I went there, there was a parent from Bombay who said, Prachi, this is a great initiative, and calls me 2 days after and says, let me know how I can help. How can we do this for Mumbai? There was a mother who came in and said, Prachi, I was going to do a similar thing for Bangalore, but now that you're doing it, I don't have to duplicate. Let me just support you in what you're doing.
Hmm.
So these were various sources that gave me even more inspiration to what I do. And I always say that मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ मिलते गए कारवां बनता गया. So brick by brick, bringing people together organically, we started doing it at various locations. So that's how one part of the database was built. And for other, we had doctors, therapists come together and say
Hmm.
that we know these are common questions. We interact with families day in, day out. Maybe I can record this information for you. Or we
Hmm.
used to say, okay, we'll create a poster about this, and they would give in their information about it, and
Right.
so on. And that's how information database was also built. But it was primarily about people from various places coming together. So I have always insisted that the work we are doing, we are the facilitators, but it is actually the community coming together. It is, ecosystem is a very corporate word, I know, but it is truly building that ecosystem where people from different
Communities.
spaces are coming together with a common aim, saying that family and the child is at the center of it, and let us help in whichever way we can.
So, if I may ask some very basic brass tag questions, Prachi. Uh, now I have a child who has a rare disorder, and it is a progressive condition. So, if I, let's say, need any help, can be it with counseling, with different kinds of therapies, with who are the best, let's say, neuros or orthopedics I can consult with in a particular city. Does Nayi Disha have like a a category wise sort of an approach that this is the condition? I mean, how, if I just have to ask you a basic question, how does a parent go about on Nayi Disha?
Let me here tell you about a mother who got associated with us during COVID times. She actually joined us for a parent training program from a small place called Indrapur near in UP, just near Delhi. So now this mother, for 4 years, she could figure out that there's something not right, that development doesn't seem right. And she couldn't find the right person in her system who could actually diagnose the child, who could assess the child, and so on. And after 4 years, she got this diagnosis that the child has autism. Before she could process and understand what autism is, she
Hmm.
met quacks because the moment, see, nobody is ever prepared for news, right? One goes through a cycle when you understand the news. It's not like diabetes, you know everyone. It's not
I get
that,
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
diabetes is also not easy. I deal with it day in, day out, but I'm saying it's more common. So, before she could understand what this means and comprehend what it would mean for her, she meets quacks. She meets all kinds of quacks who are telling her that, oh, I have a cure for this. And whatever little money she has, without the support of her husband, she loses it with these quacks. Not only does she lose the money, she loses very important intervention time during this period.
Right.
And eventually, what happens? The child is dependent, the school is not giving admission, and so on. And coming back to your question on how does Nayi Disha help in this space? Well, a parent, when they're suspecting something is not right, they can reach out to the helpline. Our team will talk to them, understand what is happening, and probably tell them that this is where you need to go. And if the conclusion is okay, one should meet a developmental pediatrician because we
Hmm.
insist parents meet development. Of course, there are dearth of developmental pediatricians,
Hmm.
whoever there is, maybe the pediatrician, psychologist, and so on. We also provide them with a list of directory that we have created that here are various places you can go to. And we provide that information unbiased, but the parent can always join our support group where they meet other parents. So there are city-wise support groups, there are condition-wise support groups where they meet other parents and learn from their experiences. And
Hmm.
then they get, let's say they get the diagnosis, they understand what it is, what therapies will be needed. They go back to the directory, they find whoever they need, maybe a speech
Understood.
therapist, maybe,
Hmm.
and so on. They can find those therapists. And then later, they can continue to learn. And I think one of the very important things is these support groups because they also help the family know that they are not alone. I'll never forget that I
Absolutely.
was speaking to a young mother who just had a baby with Down syndrome. And I was speaking to her, being a sibling, and telling her the journey is this way, that way, and but one thing
Hmm.
she said is, Prachi, यानी और भी लोग हैं, मैं अकेली नहीं हूँ इसमें. Yes, और
Hmm.
भी लोग हैं, आप अकेले नहीं हो इसमें.
Hmm.
So that itself gives the parent hope that there are others from whom I can derive that strength.
Right.
Going
Right.
forward, they can understand more about the condition by going to the platform, learn about it, watch videos by pediatricians, watch videos by psychologists, and so on, and learn more. I mean,
Hmm.
more importantly, watch videos from other parents and know more about the experience and what, how they can think about it and what it means.
Hmm.
And then, of course, whenever if there are government schemes to be availed, they can come back to the helpline, learn more about it, and so on. So that's how Nayi Disha supports. They can attend parent training programs to understand that
Hmm.
how can I help my child in home settings.
So you have these regular workshops and sessions organized for parents where you are counseling them. And are there for any
Yeah.
specific medical condition, or it is in general, just to be able to sort of latch on to the new style of parenting, some common foundations that are rendered through these
There
sessions?
are some common things. I think the one program that we run called Saksham is for the age group of 2 to 12 with conditions like autism, Down syndrome, etc. The primary thrust is also to help the parent accept the condition, accept the child for who or he or she is, because the narrative has been largely governed by the medical narrative, which says that okay, something is not perfect with the child, and what can you do? It is more about accepting the child for who he or she is. And then how can you work around? Because once your parents start accepting, they also look at what are the strengths. What is it that the
Hmm.
child is doing? And then look at how can we enhance this strength. I was thinking about this week back. So the idea is not to fix the child. The
Yeah.
idea is to remove the barriers in child's learning.
Hmm.
What can I do to remove that barrier? How do I make it easier? What kind of teaching will be better? Will he learn visually better? Will he listen and learn? Is he encouraged when he or she is encouraged when I appreciate the child and
Got
so
it.
on? So
Got it. Sounds extremely interesting, Prachi. While you were talking and this thinking mind just goes off, right? And I'm only thinking that what happens if, let's say, you come across a new community of, maybe a new community around a medical condition. It could be SMA, for example, like the one that, like the one that bothers Kia's life, for example. So, is it possible for different patient advocacy groups to sort of latch on to Nayi Disha to become a part of this ecosystem that is being created? And I'm only thinking that the more you unify, right, the more you unify through
yeah,
a
yeah,
just like how the central nervous system operates, right? You have like a central nervous system across these
correct.
communities which carries the data, carries the information in the network, and and there could be so much of cross sharing that can happen, because usually a
Absolutely.
medical condition is not, it doesn't exist in a silo, right? There's always
Silo.
either
Exactly.
neurological or physiological or
Yeah.
sociological, etc., right? So what do you have to say to that?
So yeah, again, going back to the theory of we being the facilitator. So tomorrow, now I know what MONISHA HATKAR does and how she works towards it. I know there is a muscular dystrophy group out there. So if a helpline reaches out, and we are building that SOP and all of that also. So our
Hmm.
team knows whom to connect this parent to. See, we are not always going to have that information. We can connect them to the parent. A parent can be in Mumbai. We know which are the organizations in Mumbai to connect them to. So this is
Right.
how we make the connection. And instead of us reinventing the wheel every time, there will be places and spaces where we can connect with the community. It can be the community of professionals, it can be the community of parents where we can help parents with that information. That's the
Perfect.
whole idea.
Perfect. So it is possible. It is possible
Yeah.
to have
It
like
is
a,
very much possible.
for a community to not just a parent to come and latch on to the system, but the ecosystem that is being created, but even a community of
Ecosystem also.
professionals and maybe a patient advocacy group. Tell me a few,
Yeah.
not in a few. Tell me one or two success stories. Prachi, this sounds exciting, and the reason I want to bring out this aspect of you sharing the success story is so that other people who are listening to us get encouraged that this is working. It's not something that is just information lying out there and not helping people. So anything that you can recollect over the years which has really been helpful for parents.
Sure. One is I'll just speak a bit statistically in terms of our helpline also or our website also. What we have seen in last 2, 3 years is the numbers have been doubling.
Mm-hmm.
Not only have the numbers been doubling, but we have also seen that the percentage of local language being uptake of the local language, uptake of phone service, uptake of our chat in Hindi
Mm-hmm.
has also increased. That is one part of the story. But other, I'll just share a case study that our helpline lead shared with me this
Mm-hmm.
afternoon actually. That a mother from a very rural location in Jharkhand reached out to us, and whenever, especially in developmental disabilities, when families reach out, the common question that regularly comes up is about how do I manage this difficult behavior? And my team explained in a very simple way that, using traffic light analogy, saying that this is green, this is orange, means something needs to be done, and then it escalates. So, what can you do before it escalates? How do you convert that? And apparently, and they have been following up with her. Apparently, she has, and she herself said that I'm following what you told me, and I'm able to figure out what will really trigger my child and how can I work towards avoiding it. So it brings us a lot of joy when this happens. I would say that it is not always success story. Sometimes you work towards it, sometimes you face success, sometimes you work
No,
more
that
towards
happens in all walks of life, Prachi.
all
That's a
walks of
given.
life.
But
Absolutely.
it's amazing to see that there is something like this in our own country where there's either too much of information or there's no information whatsoever, and there's at least somebody who's balancing that space out there. And you've been doing it for fairly 10 years now. It's not even a short span of time. It's been almost 10 years that
Yeah, yeah. Nayi Disha formally after it was registered is into its ninth year, and my work, yes, it
hmm,
has been from 2014, so it's 10 years now.
amazing. Amazing.
We have received calls from smallest village in UP where a sibling has asked, how do I help my sister because she was to get married? And then
See, look at the
there is
level
some
of
information we
penetration. Then,
share
if
with
you're getting calls from non-urban areas, that's a massive sign of progress. I think if anybody says that no, this is nothing, I would be, I would be totally surprised if anybody says that to you. How does and this is a very genuine ask, and please be honest about this, Prachi. Don't need to feel shy at all. How do you sustain an organization like Nayi Disha? How do you keep yourself fueled, when I say in terms of financially?
Initially, I was bootstrapping whatever funds I put in and had friends and family support. I had a lot of interns and volunteers who helped us in the initial stages. And I think, especially during COVID, there were two things that happened. One is that the work was recognized and we received some awards. And then um, the CSR started appreciating what was being done because essentially there all the work that happens in the disability space has been about intervention,
Mm,
some education, and a lot of skilling. There's always a talk about skilling, but how and when do you get to skilling? First, you need to help the
absolutely.
parent accept the child, help the parent support the child, bring that acceptance. And I always say, all this acceptance talk that we have, acceptance starts from family.
Mm,
First, the family as a whole need to accept the
absolutely.
child for being different, and that doesn't happen easily. If typically
Mm,
it is a mother who will accept, there might be few people supporting her, but if the family as a whole supports, it can just change the story altogether.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
started understanding, and I think also what 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 got underlined was how we have been able to marry technology with community, really. Because we have used technology to reach more people, but at the same time, not made it technology alone, but instead have been able to build that community so that the community also becomes self-sustaining. Now, there are हजार conversations that happen on WhatsApp group where parents help each other.
Hmm.
In some
Hmm.
cases, those queries will come to the helpline, but not all of those queries come to the helpline, right? So that is more about building that ecosystem and parents supporting each other also.
Got it. Is there any plan of setting up maybe interactive, maybe an app or something like that, which technologically allows you to create a space which is self-building, or creating a profile of that parent, maintaining that database of the child, and then having data around, because one of the things, and I'll tell you why I'm asking you this also, Prachi. The biggest dirt in our country, okay, the biggest vacuum, if you ask me, is the lack of data in the healthcare industry. And I'm talking with respect to how many, let's say, patients of Down syndrome do you have, or how many patients of autism do you have, or how many patients of any particular long lasting ailment do you have in the country, because of which a lot of reforms are unable to be formed around the population, get implemented, etc. Have you ever thought that you probably sitting on a mine of an idea, which can be taken to another level, where you're actually creating or using technology to capture this data, and at the same time making it a little more interactive for whoever is using the platform?
I mean, the conversations about apps have happened a हजार times. The website itself is mobile responsive. But what I have realized is India runs on WhatsApp. That's the bottom line. When you talk
Hmm.
about penetration of internet in rural communities and so on, and that is where we want to reach places where there is a lack of therapists. We started with bigger cities, of course, but now we are working in tier three cities, and we want to move further. So I feel that whenever you hear about digital penetration, it is essentially Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube. So
Hmm.
why not use these channels to reach more families? So
Hmm.
that is what we continue to do. So that is why we are not. I mean, our support groups are built on WhatsApp. WhatsApp has its limitation of 1024 members, but we're still
Hmm.
using that because that is the most easiest way for it.
Hmm.
parenting.
It's quick. Yeah, it's
Today,
quick
when you
and
have
it's.
your household help, yeah, because
Hmm.
anyone is accessing it. It has
Hmm.
become an equitable platform in a certain way. That is
Hmm.
why using it is more important. And that's why what we are doing now is building parent training programs, parent awareness programs over WhatsApp chatbot, so that a parent can access it anytime at their fingertip, easy to access. Even if the father has the phone, let's say throughout the day, the
Hmm.
phone comes home in the evening, and the
Hmm.
mother can look at it, or both should be looking at it. It's not just the mother who should be looking at it,
Sure.
but they
Hmm.
can look at it, they can understand it at the time that is convenient to them, in a language
Hmm.
that is convenient to them, and in a pace that is convenient to them. So
Right.
that is what we're doing. And in terms of data, yes, definitely. We are capturing data in different ways and different formats. So there is an understanding of what the parent needs. But I mean, the focus has primarily been the data to support parents and the data
Got
to
it.
how can we
Hmm.
support the parents better, look at our own intervention, understand what is working, what is not working for us, which is the
Hmm.
most, which is the service that has the most uptake and so on.
Hmm. So, just a thought, but if I have to ask you now, and I guess this is again important because you've been in the space for so long, what is your, what is your focus right now with Nayi Disha at hand? What is it that you're currently uh, channelizing all your energy on?
I'll take a step back and talk about what you were mentioning in terms
Sure.
of prevention. And of course, there are different conditions and different perspectives for different conditions also. But very specific, I will speak very specific to the space that I work in terms of developmental disabilities.
Hmm.
Over years of working, we are also learning and evolving. And one thing we have realized is people are born different. I mean, we live in a world where we are differentiating in people based on the places they go for worship, based on the food they eat.
Absolutely.
Really, that is what is happening. So I think the nature is there to say something when we have children who are different from each other. It is also about accepting and learning the diversity, because when you see that diversity, there's so much that you learn from also. I understand where you are coming from in terms of the caregiver, in terms of life changing, and nothing is easy. There are
Right.
hospitalizations in and out and all of that. But there is also a thought that diversity, and again, I go back to the developmental disability space, which I understand and where I come from, that where there will be differences, and it is for us to understand. I mean, there was a time when I really didn't like the term neurodiversity, because I thought it is just one uh, very elitist term for the LinkedIn community, to be honest. But using terminology is one thing. I've still used developmental disability or intellectual disability in my conversation, but it is also about understanding the concept that people have different brains, people think differently, people process things differently at their own pace, and that is something for us to accept as a society. When we
Hmm.
start accepting that, I think that is there for a reason, where we learn that diversity is going to exist in various ways. So one perspective for this is just pure acceptance of differences existing.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I look at myself, had it not been for my brother, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I always
Hmm.
joke about it that I would be in a corporate somewhere, and with due respect to my friends in corporate, having a midlife crisis at this point. So there's so much that I have gained from him, and so much unconditional love that I get every day. And end of the day, it has made me a better person. So I think that's also
Yeah.
there for a reason.
Yeah.
And data, definitely, we are working on various kinds. I mean, one of the data that we looked at was how difficult is it for families to get UDID certifications.
Hmm.
And
I
we have
saw
been
that.
working with a partner organization there with FACTA. And
Hmm.
what came out is, I mean, the various pieces of information that are being analyzed now. But one thing is, for example, in Telangana, getting the medical examination done and medical assessment done is very hard.
It's the same
Uh,
everywhere, Prachi,
Everywhere.
everywhere. It's like
Yeah.
I would call it a torture, honestly speaking. And it is something that I think very few people, except for I saw your, ring of posts that you made around it, but nobody else was making noise like the way you did. And I think that is a very good thing that you did, where you were trying to make it convenient. And somewhere, if we could have, some uh, person in authority, with whom we could have done that,
Yeah,
who understood that, for at least something like this has to be made much more easier than it is. Going and getting an
it is
Aadhaar card, for
exactly.
example, or getting a PAN card for that matter, or even a passport for that matter, is much easier than getting an UDID card, whereas it is for an affected individual, right? So how ridiculous
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that?
I've had families of children with muscular dystrophy going to medical services
Exactly.
and they not knowing what to do, moving here and there, as it is navigation is hard, as
Inaccessible
it is
buildings. Yeah,
accessibility is there.
exactly, inaccessible
हाँ,
buildings, and
और
they're
फिर
being
वहां
made to
जाओ
come.
और पता चलता है कुछ नहीं हो सकता. हमें
Absolutely.
नहीं पता, आप कल आओ. That is the
Yeah.
apathy that exists really. Even things like, okay, Down syndrome is there for life. Why do you need another medical assessment? It's established that it is a disability which is permanent. Why do you need a medical assessment again? So
Hmm.
these are the things that need to be looked into by people in
Sometimes
authority.
I keep telling people who ask me ki why go in for a thing, for a card like a UDID, and I feel maybe that is one way by which the government is trying to record some data, for
That's
all you know,
definitely
right?
there. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah. That is
and
that
maybe
is
that is what we should
true.
encourage, but somewhere I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
what has got lost out in trying to implement even this simple practice of getting that card is government has forgotten most of the hospitals, or the buildings which are earmarked for assessment of the patients are inaccessible, and that is where
Are
convenience has
inaccessible.
completely, yeah, they have completely
Yeah, yeah.
forgotten the convenience side of the aspect.
Quite honestly, for me, one part of the focus is sustainability of the organization because as an organization also, I'm not trying to build any kind of legacy here. So the organization should be able to continue without me as well as one part of what I look at internally, that people make their own decisions and my team is capacitated enough to take it forward. That's one part which is quite internal. But the other part of it is we are focusing a lot right now on child protection and
Hmm.
recognizing child protection in therapeutic services because see the space is a land of zero oversight. um,
Hmm.
when you go for therapies also you might come across people who do not have qualification, who do not have who are not really supposed to be working in the space and working there and so on. That's one part, but at least that people get trained, there is empathy, they might provide some service, and any service, any honest attempt is welcome when there is dearth of services. But
Hmm.
at the very same time, we need to have processes in place where our children are protected, where families are not duped,
Hmm.
where parents are not told that there is a cure when none exists.
Hmm.
Organizations like ours should be working more on SEO rather than a fake stem cell therapy organization that
Absolutely.
happens to have all
Absolutely.
the money in the world and is able to use it. So when a parent first searches, they find that cure instead of an organization which will
Hmm.
sincerely support you. So
Hmm.
those are the challenges. The focus, I'll come back to child protection policy. That is one thing that we are working on because there are a lot of complaints that we are hearing from the community where children, uh, parents are not able to go in and know what is happening inside, or
Hmm.
children are coming out with marks on their hands and their cheeks. And of course, it can be children fighting with each other at some point, but again, we cannot forget that these are our children, many of whom are non-verbal. So
Oh.
their protection relies at the top. So that's one thing that we are working on this year. How do we sensitize organizations? How can we ensure that all organizations have a child protection policy in place? Or organizations think about, well, do we have an open door policy? Are we welcoming the family in the therapy room?
Hmm.
Welcoming a family in therapy room is not just about protection, but also involving families in therapy as partners. We
Right.
focus a lot on family centric support that a family should receive because they are the ones who are bringing about the change.
Hmm.
It has to be a journey together if we want better outcomes for the child. So these are the things we are looking at in terms of focus in the community.
Hmm.
But largely, yes, how do we make this information available to? Because we have still tapped the tip of the iceberg. I mean,
Yeah.
I told you about doubling of the helpline queries and people coming to the platform. Still, it is a very small portion. How
Hmm.
can we make this information accessible to families in their method of convenience, channel of convenience, language of convenience, and their All
Hmm.
of that is something that we are working on, and that remains primary focus.
Any thought process on tying up with the government at some level to make this resource
That's some work
available?
that's happening. And, yeah.
Hmm.
And I
That's
must say that I'm quite happy to come across government organizations, people who are uh, heads of various institutes who are genuinely
hmm.
interested in making this happen, really want to bring about a change. We were in one of the conferences organized by DEWD about a month back, and I was so happy to hear the head there, Mr. Rajesh Agrawal, who was able to actually understand the challenges that a family has,
Yeah.
and that itself gave me so much hope. We have
Hmm.
been speaking to various
Because
other
that
organizations
seems to be
and
to a lay person like me, that seems to be the easiest go to place, because if you don't know who to go across laterally, then obviously upward to the government makes sense, because somewhere they can hold, yeah,
yeah,
and push the initiative to grow,
yeah.
across geographies.
We are
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
focused on working with various organizations, government outfits, that if we can, and see how we can work together, because they have the last mile reach. And if we can be of
Yes.
support in any which way and reach more families, that's something definitely we want to do. Of
Hmm.
course, it's learning and understanding how to do it, and it
No,
will
the
take some time.
Anganwadi network is already available across the country. It is already available. There are health workers who are already working for the, government I mean, at different strata of this, of the society, be it from at the rural level, at the village level, etc. But I think somewhere, uh, having it collaborated, with the kind of work that you're doing will actually help the correct information flow, right? In terms of what a parent needs to do, and the parent could be from any strata of the society, doesn't have to be from the urban
Right.
environment only. So I think it will help penetrate the reach. But just to ask you a little more in a pinpointed way, Prachi, geographically, how far have you been able to spread on your own?
I think in terms of the reach of the platform and the helpline, it has been pan-India. Our specific work where our team has been going and involved with communities has happened of course, in Telangana, because the headquarters is based in Hyderabad. A
Hmm.
lot in Maharashtra, we have support groups in Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur, Nashik, and all.
These are your own support groups. They are not support groups
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
created and managed by you. Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Please
by the
continue.
team, by the
Hmm.
parent champions, and also in Hindi speaking states. So there's Jharkhand, there is MP, there's Chhattisgarh, um, uh, and there is Uttar Pradesh. So these are the places we have been focusing on, of course, with support of partners, with support of parent champions who
Hmm.
volunteer with us, who work with other parents, who provide that information.
Got it.
These have been specific
So
locations. Yeah.
any specific ask, Prachi, what you're doing is mammoth. Any specific ask you have from listeners, people who can come forward, anything that you want anybody listening to you, to you to contribute with when it comes to support, etc.
I think in the narrative of disability also, somewhere I have seen it earlier, that the narrative about developmental disabilities has been so hard, because when it comes to locomotor disabilities, and I'm not at all denying the challenges there,
Hmm.
but there is something that is more tangible for the society to think about in terms of accessibility, in terms of uh, visual accessibility, more physical accessibility, and so on. But
Hmm.
I think there is very little awareness in the society about developmental disabilities, as you said, similarly about rare
Hmm.
diseases. So I think that is one starting point. And here we deal a lot with stigma and the
Hmm.
society barrier as a society barrier. So that, I mean, the only way to remove that is with awareness, with the kind of
Yes.
conversations you and I are having in
Hmm.
various locations.
Hmm.
That's one part of it. But the second part of it is also that recognizing the invisible caregiver,
Hmm.
not just as somebody in the process of being a change agent, but also in terms of being a contributing member to the society itself,
Hmm.
is very important. We do not want mothers to sit at home to care for their child. I mean, if you look at it, A
Hmm.
large burden of education and healthcare is taken up by the primary caregivers,
Right.
and that is how the burden on the government healthcare system and the government education system is reduced, because we are doing it for you. Which
Hmm.
also means that mothers are not going to work, mothers are staying at home to provide that care, and not uh, sort of being able to economically, I mean, they are in this fashion, but
Hmm.
also have different ways to be productive and do other things that they would want to do.
Hmm.
So, recognizing how we can support caregivers is quite important. And it is not just about developmental disabilities. I mean, we have a aging population in the country. We have
Exactly.
young children. COVID has taught us so much, and if we leave
Hmm.
out those learnings from COVID,
Right.
it will be difficult.
But the subject is huge, and I know we can't cover all of it. You have, a long way to go, and this is just one of the many conversations, Prachi. Before we go, is there anything else that you would want to add?
I think, yes, there is excitement in terms of entrepreneurs and so on. I think a lot of time, as you said, it's very important to keep ears and eyes open to understand what's happening, but it's also important to look at whom are we leaving behind when we are doing things, you know.
Yeah.
It's also important to recognize the lessons that we learn from adversity and
Hmm.
recognize different diversities also. Remain in those silos. So if there's something that it teaches us, it is to understand, and it just comes to the bottom line of recognizing a human as a human first, and
Absolutely. And somewhere we
starting with
all
dignity and
have
kindness. Right?
pretty much the same issues, right? Whether it is
Yeah,
healthcare, or whether it is, freedom to move, or, freedom to communicate, etc. But I think at least you've made a start, Prachi. So we have to recognize that you've come a long way, having covered 10 years in the space. Doing substantial amount of work has to be recognized, which is one reason why I wanted to, I wanted to speak to you on Heroes of Inclusion, because creating inclusion through, I think, through healthcare and giving access to any kind of information when it comes to healthcare is, I think, the biggest uh, impact one can create for the humankind. So you're doing that. Please continue to. Do not worry about not whether you're creating a legacy or not. You have already created it, and you just have to figure out
I
a
don't want
sustain.
a legacy.
No, no, you've
I'm
already
happy
done
not
it.
to
It's
leave
too late.
it.
It's too late to say that
The focus is on sustainability.
absolutely. I think that is the key, and solutions are available. We'll figure it out. But I think collaborate and work together is the key. So looking forward to
Yes,
doing
yes.
that with you, Prachi. Thank you for all the time that you've given to this podcast and talking to us. So meet you in the next episode whenever we do one on this topic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Really enjoyed speaking to you, Monisha.